glycoside use in the preceding week.
To our next session, which is going to be chaired by Professor McMullen, who is Head of Undergraduate Careers here within the school. So, Professor.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And this is going to be a session looking at some other people's experiences. So we have 3 people who are going to tell us about their intercalated degrees. They get 10 minutes each, but then we're going to have questions and answers at the end, and I want you all to be thinking of the questions and the things you want to know as you go ahead. So the first person is Natalie Catherwood, who's going to tell us about medical education, hopefully.
Is it
Hello, my name is Natalie, and very quickly I'm just going to talk about medical education. So first of all, why is it important? Well, from the public and the GMC's point of view, they want medical students to be competent in all the skills needed to practice medicine before they graduate. From my point of view, as a third-year medical student, my medical education is important because I want to be able to provide the best quality of care for my patients in the future. I want to be, at the very least, a good doctor, if not a great doctor. Now, if you were to try to write an equation to make a good doctor, what might you need? Well, a keen student and some textbooks, lectures and tutorials, some practical skills sessions and some ward teaching, and let's not forget, exams. All these are kind of laid out in the medical education and the curriculum that's set down by the school. But if you put all of these together, they just aren't enough to make a good doctor, let alone a great one. There's something missing, and this something is experience. There's no substitute for experience, as I'm sure everyone's heard before, and I find this especially true in medicine. I'm personally interested in how students' personal experiences of medical school shape them into the professionals that they are expected to be. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about a project I've been involved with for 2 years with the Centre for Medical Education, which sought to address a curious phenomenon, which is the development of cynicism as students progress through medical school. So just to try and visualise this, if we think of medical school as a journey, everyone arrives mostly fresh from school, everyone's really keen, really enthusiastic, and then we have some library sessions and some lectures and end up like this grumpy lot. And a personal experience of mine that kind of illustrated this was last year I was working really late in the library, as we all do, and I saw one of my 4th year friends who came over and he said to me, "What are you doing here? Hope you're not working. Stop trying to win at medicine." And this kind of shocked me, and I felt really nerdy for being in the library. Maybe I shouldn't be, he's 4th year, he knows better, maybe you don't need to work so hard to get by. Really convinced myself that I shouldn't have been in the library. And then I realised that he's just lost the buzz that I get from learning, as geeky as that sounds. He's just kind of given up, trying to pursue that ultimate, if somewhat unrealistic goal of knowing everything. And this encounter made me really curious as to how this had happened to him. Well, this loss of idealism isn't something that's directly taught. It appears to be part of a hidden curriculum, and this is picked up by medical students during their many interactions with doctors and patients throughout their clinical years. So as part of a group of 1st years and 4th years, that's us there, I set about trying to work out how this had happened and get to the bottom of it. So we went about this using narrative techniques, and what this involved was basically asking 1st years and 4th years to get a view from each end of the medical school spectrum. Just ask them to talk about their medical school experience, very free form. They could just talk about whatever they wanted, and then afterwards we transcribed the interviews and looked for common themes within them. And to try and present what we'd found through these many hours of interviews, we tried to cluster these things into influences, expectations, professionalism, and experiences. And so we presented these, as you can see in this poster. We went for a game board format and just used the sides of influences, expectations, experiences, and professionalism. We went for this game board format because we felt it incorporated quite nicely the elements of kind of chance and opportunity that medical school bring. So our conclusions from this project were basically that discrepancies between students at medical schools' expectations and their experiences were a major contributing factor to the loss of idealism and the development of cynicism. But the great thing about this project is not only did it identify the problem, which was the discrepancy between the expectations and the experience, it also was able to offer a solution, because we videoed all of these interviews and we suggested that video clips of students telling their personal stories could be used as the foundation for a web-based learning resource, which would help to inform current and prospective medical students about the realities of studying medicine, therefore helping to minimise the development of cynicism. Many of you here probably think that academic medicine is mostly bench-to-bedside research, but my experiences of this project have taught me that there's a lot of work to be done in the area of medical education, which can help us to improve it and hence improve patient care. I also really enjoyed being part of this project because not only did it teach me new skills, but it helped me to appreciate that research is an important aspect of learning that all medical students should be exposed to. By that I mean not only the experience of conducting research, but also presenting research, as I was really fortunate to do so in Dublin. This is me with one of our earlier posters, and that was at the InMed conference, and was also able to attend ASME in Edinburgh, and this is me and the rest of the medical education gang at the annual conference. Great experience to be able to travel and exchange views with other people, and that's another part of what research is about. So just to conclude, if I could leave you with one message, it's that there's no substitute for experience. Whether that refers to the hidden curriculum which contributes towards medical education, or indeed the experience of doing research itself, either through a project like mine, a summer studentship, or an intercalated degree. Research is an invaluable experience, allowing you to learn, develop new skills, and hopefully make improvements within your area of interest. Thank you.
Natalie, that was very good and very interesting. Anybody got a quick question? We'll bring you back at the end. Okay, well, I'm going to ask you one. So, are you going to take this forward?
Yeah, basically the results that we have, we've got a series of video clips that we actually use as part of a workshop whenever we were over at ASME. We're hoping to have them integrated into like the web-based learning resource that I mentioned, but we are currently trying to recruit a computer person to do that because we don't have the skills. But yeah, we're hopefully going to take it forward.
Okay, right, well, thank you very much. But if you stay, but at the end we'll have more questions, okay. And also people can talk to people during the break as well. So the next person then is, sorry, don't want to sit like that. The next person then is David Carroll, who's going to tell us about his BSc intercalated degree.
Hello, it's me again. So this is the story of my BSc in medical science, and it's by me. I'm 21 and a half. And whenever I was thinking about this last night, I didn't really know whether to talk about my degree or my experience, because they're very, very different things. And because I can't talk for any less than 10 minutes, like I could be here until 7 o'clock if you let me, I put down my email and my Twitter name. So email me if you have any questions about anything to do about interpretation. And if I don't reply within a day or so, tweet me and I'll get back to you in about 10 seconds. So, why did I apply for an intercalated degree in the first place? And it was because I kind of subscribe to the same philosophy as Professor Smith. I'm incurably curious, and I sat in lectures first and second year in like the hottest room in the Royal or in NBC, and whenever I sort of, to try and keep myself awake, I thought, whenever we were told like that this stuff works, or this drug works, or this disease causes this, all I could think of was why? Why do we know that this drug works? Why is this drug better than this other drug? And why isn't this drug better than this other drug? And it's just this curiosity about stuff, nothing in particular, just stuff and stuff about stuff, made me want to do an intercalated degree. And believe it or not, I am a massive geek. Like, I just sort of am interested in everything, whether it's technology, medicine, science. And these are the things that made me want to do my integrated degree. So it was just that I wanted to know how we know about stuff. And just like sort of a small word of advice, and it's probably for my cynicism more than anything else, but don't do it for your CV. If you do it just for your CV or for points on an application form, it's not worth it. Do it because you'll enjoy it and because it'll make you happy and because you're interested in it. That's the only reason why you should do it. So yeah, did it because I wanted to be taught how to think, not just to learn. I wanted to learn how to read and interpret research. So ultimately, I can provide the best care for the people I care about, who are my patients or my future patients. So this is where it all started. Summer of 2012, I did a summer studentship in the Centre for Cancer Research and Cell Biology. So I was on the 3rd floor in Professor Johnson's lab, looking at drug resistance and colorectal cancer. And these are three of the many amazing people that taught me how to science. And they also taught me how to eat cake and drink lots of coffee. That's a different story for another day. These guys just taught me everything I needed to know about how to do science, the methods, the processes, and it set me in like a really good sort of platform for my integrated year ahead. And this is what you do in integrated BSc in medical science. You have 2 semesters like everyone else. First semester you have your research project, where you spend a lot of your time slaving over cells and dishes, and yeah, I'll not elaborate on that. I'll elaborate a little bit more later about it. And you do 1 module, so I did that, an anatomy module. Second semester, I had 3 modules, where I did a lot of pharmacology and neuroscience. And yeah, it was fun. So what did I learn? So with my summer studentship and my integrated degree together, I learned a number of things. I just learned basic scientific skills that I can apply to any situation. I got my hands dirty, I got to do stuff. I learned some molecular biology, some epidemiology, and how to read and interpret evidence. And importantly, be critical about the evidence. Like, I never really believe what I read anymore, which is also a curse as well as a sort of a talent. And I also got to read, write, and present research. And out of my year, the most important things I learned was that stuff doesn't always work, especially in a lab. And while there's nights where you sort of want to stand up or just lie down and just cry yourself to sleep, because nothing has worked for the past 2 weeks in the lab, it does get better because whenever it does work, it's worth it. And I also learned to know myself and to admit that I don't know stuff, because by not being able to know stuff, it means I can sort of investigate things further. And during my year, I got to go to a few conferences. This is just one of them. So I took my summer studentship research to this conference in Dublin. It was in RCSI, the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. And for some unknown reason to me, I came in first place. Don't know why. But and this is my abstract that was published in a Biomed Central Proceedings supplement in one of their journals. So there's another hat tip to Biomed Central. And yeah, this was an amazing experience. I got to go to loads of conferences, got to go to Washington DC for a week, which was pretty great. I got to go to a conference called Evidence Live, which was organised by the BMJ, Centre for Evidence-Based Medicine, and it was just like, I was the only person in the room. I won a place there by writing an essay, and it was just like all my heroes in one room, which was a really surreal experience. But yeah, after my year, I graduated with first class honours in medical science from Queen's. And in this photo, I probably look more like Harry Potter than I normally do, which is probably a good thing. So yeah, that was my year. There's a but, and it's a big but. It is a challenge, both mentally, physically, and there's times where and I know other people who did the degree had really tough moments, and I can say that there was times where my mental health was pretty affected. Like, I had a really hard week, but I got through it. And I had people there to help and support me, and I ended up getting a first, which makes it all cool. So that's my degree. And I just thought I'd sort of chat about my whole experience of the year, because if I didn't do an integrated degree, all the stuff that happened to me in the past year would never have happened. So my experience. And the way I want to start off talking about my experience is a few things from Twitter last night. Whenever I was thinking of what I wanted to talk about, and Richard Horton, the editor of the Lancet medical journal, sort of went in one of his amazing Twitter rants. And these are two of about 8 tweets he sent. He said, medical education today is dead. Something has gone dreadfully wrong. It has no sense of purpose. It's just a senseless machine. It's a transformative education means creating leaders who will create change. Forget experts, forget professionals who want change, nothing less. And to sort of play devil's advocate, I kind of agree. So my first 2 years of medical education didn't give me the skills to create the change I wanted to see in the world, but my integrated degree did. And not by doing my degree, but my integrated degree gave me lots of opportunities to do lots and lots and lots of other stuff, which was dead cool. And I'm going to talk about a few things now, nothing in detail, because I don't want to bore you for too long. So I got involved in a student global health network called Medicine, who I'm sure most of you are aware of, and this gave me the skills to sort of create the change I wanted to see in terms of advocacy, campaigning, even just talking to people and public speaking skills. And I met some of my best friends in medicine, which is quite cool, like people from UCL in London, Oxford, Cambridge, who I never would have met if I didn't go to the national conferences. And then after getting involved in medicine, I had something that I like to call my evidence-based epiphany. So I finally got evidence-based medicine. Like, I'm sure we've all sat through those Wednesday mornings in the Royal, not really knowing what sensitivity meant or specificity meant. And I was the same. I had no idea. But then I got it. I became passionate about the use of the best evidence in medicine. And ultimately, it sort of has shaped what I want to do when I grow up. And then this sort of idealistic evidence-based world that I thought of was just completely demolished before my eyes when I realized that half of all trials had never been published. And I got angry, I felt quite betrayed and let down by the system. And I used these new skills that I'd learned to create change, to try and do something about it. And this is one of those things. So this is a document produced, it was produced last year by the Great and the Good of Medicine in the UK. You can see the logos there. And it contained lots of false claims about the nature of the relationship between drug companies and the brand doctors, and it said that all clinical trials were published, which we know isn't true. So a few of my friends and I thought it would be a good idea to point this out, that your document that you produced had lots of really rubbish claims, and yeah, you should change them. So we did. The Lancet pulled out straight away, the BMA pulled out straight away, and then the group of the Great and the Good said it was under review. And recently, apparently, the group has disbanded. And I got to work with my friends in this, just my mates, and we sat in our respective bedrooms and pointed out these concerns, and it was all from the skills we learned through our own respective pathways. Like, so it was myself and Nathan and a few other guys. And most importantly, I got to work with someone who I considered as a hero, it was Ben Goldacre, and I learned so much from him. And thankfully, a few weeks ago, I managed to co-author a piece in the BMJ with him. And none of this would have happened if it wasn't for my integrated degree. Some other cool stuff I got to do, purely because of my integrated degree, was I was approached by the UK Cochrane Centre. So whenever Professor Smith talked about sort of the Cochrane enthusiasts, he was talking about me. I was approached by the UK Cochrane Centre to help them set up this network for students who are really enthusiastic about evidence-based medicine. So I worked for them for the summer, and I found out on Twitter about 20 months ago that this network, while you can go see it at studentsforbestevidence.net, is going to be launched officially in December, which is really cool. And if anyone wants to get involved, come chat to me. And then thirdly, this is one of the other really cool things I did because of my integrated degree. I worked with my best friend on this project called the Open Access Button. Because we've hit so many paywalls doing our research, we both did research last year, we wanted to do something about it. So it's an online tool to track how many times people are hit paywalls when they're trying to read research. And we're also going to try and provide them with access to research through a variety of really cool and legal means. So if you want to chat to me about that, come chat to me about it. Or go to openaccessbutton.org. We're going to launch it next month on the 18th of November. So all of this wasn't part of my degree, but because of my degree, it was part of my experience. And ultimately, this is all that matters. I had fun. So, thank you.
Okay, Dave, thank you very much. So we all know what we want to do now. Anybody, any questions? stunned them all with
I'm really sorry. I should have shut up if you want to.
Okay. But as I say, staying around, so we'll get to questions at the end. So the final speaker is Patrick Linden, who's going to tell us about his MPH intercalated degree.
Okay, so sorry for interrupting the seamless flow. This is mostly just cartoons to try and, if anyone's interested in doing an intercalated degree in public health, hopefully you'll be more interested after this than less interested. So, we've all been to public health lectures before. Occasionally you might get a few people close to the back with a hangover. You're not born interested in public health. It's one of the less attractive options in medicine. There's actually a bit of a myth that when Frank Key started medical school, someone asked him what he wanted to do, and he said he wanted to be an epidemiologist, to which everyone else asked what's an epidemiologist. This is why public health is important. You know, you need to understand research, you need to understand how to interpret research, because it'll affect any job you go into, especially if you're the likes of GP, which statistically 50% of medical students will be. Andrew Wakefield, probably one of the most villainous figures in UK medicine, published a study in the 90s saying that the MMR vaccine is linked to autism. And as you can see, the number of cases have risen exponentially. And last year, huge problems with deaths related to this and the complications of this. And it's really related to any piece of poor research that gets out into the open. So you need to understand these things. So if a patient comes to you and says, should my child have the MMR, you should be able to say categorically they should, except for the rare circumstances if they're immunocompromised, but let's face it, how likely is that to happen? And everyone thinks they're getting into medicine to save patients, but statistically, doctors and hospitals are not good for patients. If you go into hospital, you're more likely to pass away than not. So if you go into public health, you do have the chance to benefit a great number of people. So while it might not be the most attractive option, it's probably the option with the greatest possibility to benefit most number of people. So why is public health important? It will affect every area of medicine. So I've come back in the 4th year this year. I've been in obs and gynae so far and anaesthetics, and you see the problems throughout public health. Obese patients, pregnant women smoking and the complications that have, and this is putting increasing burden on the NHS and on doctors themselves. Funds are squeezed, and the solutions are needed for these problems. You need to look at the patient more than the disease that's sitting in front of you. Maybe you need to consider, what is their socioeconomic background. If you're deprived, you're more likely to be overweight, to smoke, to be poorly educated, to have poor understanding of your condition, and to get less attention from your doctor, or to attend your doctor less. So it's all well and good, you giving them steroids and sending them out of any, but this is just creating further problems down the line. And a good piece of work in public health, or a good initiative, has the potential to transform the pattern and prevalence of a disease in the population. So say you introduce something that maybe reduced the number of people smoking by 2%, that's it's a small impact, but then the numbers and the money saved by that sort of thing could be massive. So the course itself, unlike a BSc, it's a whole year. It's from September to September. Most of the BScs end in June. And it's mostly based in the Royal Victoria site and the Health Sciences Building at the MBC. It's taught, contrary to popular belief. You have 2 sets of exams, 1 dissertation, and you're free to go wherever you want with that dissertation. Most of you will, if you did it, you'd get assigned a mentor, but you can find anyone in the Centre of Public Health or the Public Health Agency and really do whatever research interests you. You can go as far with that as you want. You can, follow that up if you want to present it, or if you want to get published. or even if you just want to stay in contact and do further work with those people, you have that option. In terms of class time, you're only in 2 to 4 days a week. Compared to third year or fourth year, you're in about half the amount of time, with, it's probably fair to say, about half the amount of work. So, if you're looking for maybe a year out to follow something you're interested in, and maybe, have a bit more free time yourself in the middle of your medical degree, it is a good option. In terms of the skills you can develop, you can learn how to do research, you can learn how to interpret research, you can perform a literature review, you can learn how to do that, how to compile, an accurate set of references. They have a module on statistics, so you can learn how to do statistics, how to perform the analysis on a computer, how to interpret that, what the difference between a parametric measure and a non-parametric measure is. You might remember it, I don't really remember it, but it'll come back to you quickly, and if you maybe want to do research in the future, that's a good skill to have. You learn how to critically appraise things. As David said, that's vital. Just because something's published in a good journal doesn't mean it's true. Andrew Wakefield's study was published in the Lancet, which is considered one of the most prestigious journals around, and is now widely accepted as being completely false. So you have the opportunity to present and develop skills, and you may think that I'm not doing such a good job now, but I was worse at presenting before it. So, and just skills to think outside the box, to consider that a patient is more than just the clinical symptoms in front of you, and that maybe you need to consider the wider context. In terms of selling points for the degree, it's a good option, and there's a bursary available which will cover your fees, and then there's a grant available. So you can take the year out, get the grant. When you come back in the fourth year, NHS have a bursary which will cover your Queen's fees for the last 2 years. So in terms of a financial option, it's quite a smart thing to do. I know David said don't do a degree for your CV, but why not? If you just want to dip your toe into public health, see if you're interested, and then come out again, that's fine. And you'll have your 4 points when you go to apply for a job, and then you have the opportunity to maybe try and present something at a conference, or try and get a publication, in which case all the better. And you can make contacts for the future. People who work in the Centre for Public Health or the PHA, you can follow them up, see if they want to do another piece of work, or maybe you do go down public health route when you leave medical school. You can come straight back in. A fellowship program to get into public health, they have to do the masters anyway as part of their first year while they're working, so that would just ease that whole process. You can actually sit the first part of the fellowship of public health, and if you want part of the way through, which is just again something else to make you stand out from everyone else. And it's a bit fair to say that it's a bit easier than this year is at the minute anyway for me. And that's not to say that there aren't problems. When you're coming out of medicine, you don't have much experience writing very detailed essays or a dissertation. That's a new skill that needs to be developed, and there are time management things when you have an essay to hand in the middle of September, and you're on your week in Alton Gynae, and you're in class something like 50 hours a week, and you're trying to finish up your dissertation, but that's just something you have to live with. If you want any further information, just Google Queen's Intercalated Masters in Public Health. You can look at the intercalated degree book, or you can email Dermot O'Reilly, who is the module coordinator, or feel free to email me, or I'll answer any questions after if anyone wants to talk. And this is just a cartoon that I've seen in a number of our public health lectures that I think just really illustrates the point. You can basically apply this to anything. So what is the point of making the NHS better, of making a patient better, making anything better? What's the point of doing it for nothing? Which is obviously, you always want things to be better. That's me.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Patrick first? You're all very silent, so I'm going to ask him again. How are you going to take this forward? Are you going to go into public health, or?
It's something I would consider. I haven't actually graduated yet, so I only handed in my dissertation about a month ago. And then I'll need to follow that up, see with my supervisor if every 3 months we could get that published or something. From the work I did, there's a possibility of doing a second study, so I could do that as well, and just leaves the option open if I want to go into research, maybe further down the line if I want to go into academic medicine, say. As I said, I think it's anyone who's interested in academic medicine, it would definitely be a good degree to do. It's public health will, it affects every side of medicine.
Thank you. So if we have all 3 people so that everybody can ask questions for a few minutes, that might encourage a few questions. So, any questions?
For those who get intercalated, how did you find moving from the clinical side to the scientific side and then trying to work your way back into the clinical side of medicine again? Was it a difficult transition?
So the transition for me, because I did my MPhil after second year, going into science is fine, but coming back now in the third year has been quite difficult. I don't have any confidence in seeing patients anymore, really. I can't remember how to examine patients. So yeah, because I took the year out, my confidence in terms of clinical stuff is quite low, but it's something that will come back over time.
I would, basically say the same thing. It is difficult when you haven't really seen a patient in a year, all you've seen is statistics on a piece of paper. But it's the sort of skill, you pick it up quickly enough again. The clinical side of things is quite intense in third and fourth year, and you just pick it up and run with it. And it might be a bit harder for the first couple of weeks, but if you just stick at it, you'll be fine.
What about the financial side? Patrick told us about how he was funded, and there's also an issue that it's then another year before you qualify.
I think I can use this opportunity to justify my CV comment. So something I didn't really think of until I graduated from my undergraduate degree is the financial side of things. So it's okay, you have a student loan or you get privately funded like I was, but it's the longer term effects. So if you intercalate, it's another year of medical school or another year of university, and that's one less year sort of in the workforce, that's one less year of a salary. And if you're a consultant and you lose out on 1 year's salary, that's a really nice car or a half a house. And I don't know how much
consultants you're talking to.
But it's a really nice car for me. And then that's a year less of a pension as well at the end of it all. So there is longer term consequences of this, and that's why I kind of said don't do it for your CV.
You'll all be working to your setting back.
Exactly. So,
it doesn't actually go up after the first 40 years. Richard.
So, what do you think makes a good intercalated research project?
It's actually something I forgot to talk about in my thing.
Here's your time. Wait, go.
I feel like talking too much. So, whenever I went to do my intercalated research project, I left CCRCB where I was sort of supported and nurtured both academically and socially. And whenever I went to do my undergraduate degree, that sort of academic and social support just went out the window. I felt quite isolated. That's what kind of contributed to the hard time I had during it. So having people who are good mentors and actually look after you, not that doesn't mean being your best friend, just actually somebody that's there to sort of show you the way is really helpful.
Others, what makes
I
good
would
research?
say find something you're interested in, something that you're passionate in. If you're going to have to spend, I started my dissertation in June after my summer exams, so if you're going to spend your summer working on something, you need to have an interest in it. You need to feel like there's something that could come out of this. You don't want to do a dead-end piece of work that's not going to come to any conclusion or anything that you think is valuable. Not necessarily that you need a positive or negative conclusion. No conclusion can be just as good as anything, but if you're not invested in it, then you have to wonder why you're doing it. But the mentors, at least in the public health side of things, are all very helpful, and if you're maybe not interested in what they are, they can send you to someone who is, and they're all very enthusiastic with students. They'll help you out as much as you need.
So it needs to be something you're interested in, but how much does the serendipity come in? That you happen to end up somewhere where it's of some interest.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I enjoy my undergraduate degree, but if my first experience of research was my experience, I wouldn't have probably wanted to stay in research, but because I had I just happened to land in the Cancer Research Centre, and I just happened to have a really good team. That's probably what I want to do when I'm older. Just because I had that really amazing first impression, and that first impression kept me going.
Summer studentships, because you've started with a summer studentship, and I think you did a summer studentship as well. I don't think yours was a whole year, so you didn't do. How much, what are use are they? Have you ideas of how you get into them?
I was really lucky. I did a summer studentship this summer in the Regional Genetics Laboratory in City, and how I got into that was there was a lecturer in first year I found really interesting. Just got in touch with them, and they said, yeah, we're open to having students in our lab. Emailed her, met up with her. She organised funding from the Centre for Public Health, and yeah. One thing I would say about a great way of finding out what it's going to be like in the lab is if you talk to the students who are already working in the lab. They'll let you know if your supervisor is actually going to be around to help support you, and they're really good people to talk to.
You did a summer studentship as well.
Yeah, so I sort of subscribe to the if you don't ask, you don't get philosophy that Natalie has. So the ones in Queen's are amazing. They are great, but there's only a limited number. And I think whenever I went to CCRCB, the competitiveness was like 7 applications for every one place. So they are quite competitive. What my next research opportunity, or my next thing I want to do research, I'm just going to ask for it. So like I have eyed up a few professors I'd like to work with, and I'm just going to go ask. And in terms of financial support, the Wellcome Trust and a few other institutions do provide funding for students to do summer projects. Again, but you just have to ask, like apply for it, I guess. So if you're unsuccessful, try again.
And what are there knock-on effects? You know, if you're doing a summer studentship, you're not either working or travelling the world. Does that matter?
I did work a part-time job the summer of my summer studentship, and it killed me. I was working like 7 days a week for about 10 weeks, and it was awful. So I still have that part-time job, and it's still horrendous. I just wish I could afford to quit, but yeah, sorry. But yeah, you do lose out in the summer, but there's plenty more summers to make up for it, right? And you can go travel whenever you want.
Not when you're getting the BMW.
Not when you're a consultant, yeah.
What have you? Because you've done a couple of summer studentships now.
Yeah, and I've kind of done the summer studentship thing. I think it's a really important experience to have. I'm going to go travelling this summer, and you always get to travel with your electives, so don't worry about missing out on travelling. I wouldn't worry about not having a student job. A lot of studentships, there is a token amount available to help you get by. So don't worry about that. It's more the experience. It's the experience that's invaluable. You know, you probably had a summer job since you were 18, so this is something new and it's something different, and it's something that you can talk about if you've got interviews. And it's a lot easier to talk about than your part-time job, so I would prioritise the experience.
I think at least 2 of you had an abstract that you presented at a meeting. Will you have a publication that will be based on that abstract, and how important is getting a paper published from your work in any of the domains that you've worked in for the programme?
I think that whenever you have invested so much of your time and energy in something, it's quite nice to share that with other people, just for yourself, so that you know that all your time and your energy has been worthwhile. Like, even if you do get a null result, that's still a result, and it's still something that could save someone else from doing 8 weeks of hard work for nothing. So yeah, I think it's important to publish just to share the knowledge.
Yes.
You've been stunningly successful from a publication point of view.
Well, my summer studentship, I worked with a PhD student who had just started, so he's still working on the same stuff we worked together. So I kind of hope I'll get a publication out of it. I'm not too sure. But I do think it's quite important to actually publish, especially like I sort of mentioned that it sort of blew me away whenever I realised that half of the clinical trials aren't published. There's a lot of, am I right? There's a lot of animal or like pre-clinical stuff that isn't published either, which sort of like
it's very hard to
actually
get it published when you don't get a positive result.
actually interesting,
Which is the point, really.
interesting anecdote from my indicated. The PhD student who was in the lab before me so I was kind of continuing on the PhD student's work. Whenever I wanted to reference for previous work, there was no publications from it, not even an abstract. It was just all a PhD thesis in the lab, and it didn't actually go, like, the person didn't actually share the knowledge. I'm kind of glad I haven't really mentioned the lab I was in or the people I worked with, but it's kind of a bit unfair that that person did 3 years of hard work and actually did some really cool stuff and got quite good results, hasn't shared it with the world, and it's so easy to publish now.
And on that also is presentations. So you all presented your work? Yeah, you did. You just done it today. How much use was that? Because that presumably was a fairly new area.
Yeah, it was fun. Gave us practice really from booth.
I'd say one thing that I found, like, I'm not great at public speaking, but whenever I was at ASME and I saw some of the other people who were much further up their career in medicine than I was giving their talks and their presentations. Also, whenever you see people do it wrong, it helps you do it right. So yeah, it's a good experience just watching other people present.
And you get, if you go present at conferences, like the people who are presenting posters today, you'll all get feedback, which is the best. Because it's very good to be told where you're going wrong as well as watching other people do it wrong. So you can learn from it.
And one way you need to stand up and do it to make that judgment, don't you? Okay, any other questions? If not, we're sort of on time. So we'll stop this session now and thank all our speakers again. Posters and networking, and I think that's very important. You know, you're all very shy and quiet at the back, but you now have the chance to go and speak to people outside.
Yeah. So just about to start now is our mid-afternoon break. So poster presenters, if you could move to your posters as quick as possible, and we'll be coming around and having a chat with you about your posters. For everyone else, do grab a cup of coffee, and most importantly, tweet your friends and get them to come along as well, because there's some really interesting workshops coming along. And just to finish, we'd like to thank Professor McMillan for chairing that session. So thank you.